everybody, it's Allison. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be making this really fun card that is both a gatefold and a shaker. And the gatefold has a really unique twist to it. You can see it right here. It is an interlocking gatefold. So I made a card like this a few years ago and I've been wanting to make one ever since. And now was the time, and we're going to see it in action right here. There's this shaker element on the front, and there you can see the interlocking feature. And I just think this is so fun. All right, we're going to start with making the gatefold itself. So I'm starting with a piece of paper that is 5.5 inches tall by 8.5 inches wide. And I'm going to score it at 2 1/8 inch on each side. So this is basically half the measurement of 4 1/4. So that when you fold these two sides inwards, the resulting width of the card will be 4 1/4. So it's going to be an A2 card. So now I'm just using my bone folder to reinforce these score lines and just making sure that it matches up nice and evenly in the middle there. All right, so there is the basic gatefold card. That's how you create a gatefold. All right, I am going to stencil the front of the gatefold. So I like to tape my cards shut. This is actually what I do when I take pictures of my cards. I tape them shut, and it was just easiest to tape it shut so I can stencil the entire front of the card at once. I'm using the bubble wrap stencil from Simon Says Stamp. This is an older stencil, but I love it, and you can see how big it is. So you could do a slimline panel with this stencil really easily. And I'm trying to line it up so that the circles meet in the middle, so that none of the circles overlap that middle point where it opens. Now I have some white pigment ink, and these are my little Pouncers from Picket Fence Studios. And I'm just pouncing the ink through the holes of the stencil. When I use pigment ink or Versamark ink through stencils, I like to pounce it as opposed to blend it. I just find that the sticky nature of the inks just does better with pouncing. All right, here's the little star of the show. This is the Peeking Duck. There are two parts. The small part creates the little beak or bill, whatever that is on the duck. You know I'm terrible with animal parts. All right, on the right you can see I cut the duck out of just a rectangular panel. And on the left, and I'm going to show you right here how I did this, I just took a slightly larger circle die from my stash and placed it around the die itself. And that is how I created that duck that you see on the left. So lots of ways that you can use this duck. And I decided that I wanted to create a shaker. So instead of using foam tape to create the well for the shaker bits, I am going to create these little rings. So I took the same circle die that I just used and like the next size down circle die. If you don't have a set of nesting circle dies, I highly suggest you get a set because I use mine all the time. It's so useful. So here you see I'm using my best ever craft tape. This is from Spellbinders. This is really strong tape, and the reason I'm using it is, well, first of all, it's good tape, but it's going to stay intact. I want to cut 5 of these rings, and I want the rings to be the same exact size. So if I were to use really thin tape that didn't hold up, the tape would get cut eventually after one of these passes. And I would have to kind of line the dies up again and hope that I eyeball them the same way. So this tape stayed intact for all, I think I cut 5 of these little rings. And I'm creating 5 so that I can create the little well, the little walls of this little shaker. And you can see how the smaller ring fits right behind that, the ring of the duck, so you don't see it. All right, now I have this second ring, because remember this is kind of a interlocking feature, so I need another ring that's bigger than the duck. Now you could do what I just did with those smaller rings and use 2 circle dies, tape them together, and just cut them repeatedly. Or you can do the easy way, like I did. I used the nesting circle frames dies from Waffle Flower, and this just makes it easy peasy. You just cut this, and I cut it 4 times from white cardstock. So there's my 4 rings. All right, so here are the 5 little rings that I made. And by the way, there are sets out there that make tiny rings like this as well. I don't have one of those sets. So you could find one of those to make this even easier. Now I'm going to grab some acetate because again, this is a shaker. So we need some acetate. And I'm going to take that circle again that I used. Now here's a trick. When I cut acetate, I sandwich it between a piece of just copy paper. And that's so that the markings on my die plates don't mess up the acetate. All right, so now I have all the parts that I need, and I'm going to start gluing these rings onto a circle that I cut with that larger circle. This is, I just cut it out of white cardstock. This is just the backing for the shaker. And so I'm just going to continue to glue all of these rings one on top of the other. And again, this is creating the little well for my shaker bits. So here is the 5th layer, the 5th and final layer. And now I can add my shaker beads. These are from Pretty Pink Posh. You know I love all of these beads. I have lots of different color sets. And I'm using my little triangular tray from Simon Says Stamp to pour the beads in there. I just find it easier to pour from there. And so now I can glue the acetate on. And I was careful not to put too much glue because I don't want it oozing out and getting on the acetate where you would see it. All right, now the inside of the card, I want a white panel, and I use the new A2 rectangles set. Again, this is a nesting set, just like I was talking about having a nesting set of circles. Having a nesting set of rectangles is great. The difference between using a die like this and just trimming it with your trimmer is you get a nice little beveled, finished looking edge. Now I'm going to use the Birthday Basics stamp set to stamp a happy birthday sentiment. And I'm just using my black pigment ink. All right, so here we have the shaker. Now I wanted to add just kind of a little finishing touch to it. So I cut a purple ring. And again, I used one of the rings from that Waffle Flower nesting set. So that was really easy to cut. Now this is the Happy Faces stamp set from Simon. And at the time I did not realize that this, I think it might be retired because I didn't see it on the website when I was creating my supply list. So I'm going to show you a trick. So obviously this stamp was already in a curved formation, but just take your circular die or whatever you're trying to form your stamp around, and you can do this with a straight stamp, and just form your stamp around the circle die that you used to create, what you're stamping on. And oh, by the way, I am cutting the stamp. Yes, I am cutting the stamp, and it's okay. I was cutting off the exclamation point because my black pigment ink is brand new, and it is so juicy that I was just having problems stamping the exclamation point, and it's okay. it, you know, still says happy birthday. You'll never know there was supposed to be an exclamation point there. All right, so you saw that I used my little acetate trick where I first stamp on the acetate and then I placed my element underneath to line it up. And I do that all the time. All right, these were 4 of the large rings that I showed you before, and I cut another ring out of turquoise cardstock, so now we have 5 of the outer rings. And it's time to do final assembly. So I'm just going to add the duck on top of the acetate. All right, so now comes the important part, and that is attaching these to the card base so that they interlock. So I'm going to deal with the larger piece first, and I'm just eyeballing it to try to get it perfectly centered. And you know, I could have used a T-square ruler to make sure it was even along all 4 sides, but I just eyeballed it. And now I'm going to take a pencil and make a mark of where it's hitting that paper, because I only want to glue it on one side. If I glue it on both sides, it's going to glue the card shut. So I put glue on the 1/2 of the circle. And that's why those pencil marks helped me figure out where I should put the glue. And now I can go ahead. I'm just going to eyeball this one. I can eyeball, you know, the half that needs the glue for this thing. So just going to go ahead and add that. And now I'm going to glue that to the other side of the card. So the large ring is glued to the left side of the gatefold, and the duck is glued to the right. And so that is how that's going to work. And here I'm just wiping away any excess glue. And now I can come in and add my final ring. And I'm using my T-square ruler from Pear Blossom Press. And I'm making sure that the H and the Y, the happy birthday, are at the same level, and that's why I was using the T-square. Now I hope you heard the little shakety shake of the beads. And here is how this works, and I just think this is adorable. And by the way, these peeking, so this is the Peeking Duck. Simon has so many little peeking dies just like this with other critters. I think there's a dog, there's a cat, there's a few bunnies. I think there's a sheep. There's a daisy. I actually have the daisy in my stash. And I just think they're so fun and so many things you can do with them. But I've been wanting to recreate this card that I made several years ago. So this was just the perfect opportunity, and I hope you like it. I hope it puts a smile on your face. And that is it. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.